Welcome back. We are doing what is economics, and we were talking about Adam Smith's view on that. We talked about the German historical school, criticism of that. Now, in comes Marshall and his views, how he takes up the criticism and he comes up with his own what is the scope of economics according to Marshall. Just have a look while I just. So, Marshall, he also has a great hand in developing the study of economics. So, by the time of Marshall, the classical doctrines had been seriously undermined and economics had fallen into disrepute. The German historical school effectively challenged some of the postulates assumed by the classical school and emphasized the complexity and changing character of economic life. The Austrian school and Gibbons in England had exposed the weakness of the classical theory of value based on cost alone. Socialism and the labor movement attacked the assumptions and the conclusions of the classical school. Moreover, during this period, very great changes had taken place in the technique of production and economic life. Numerous inventions, banking and financial developments, monopolistic cartels, and trust clearly marked business cycles, etc., that exposed the hollowness of classical doctrines. Marshall was influenced by all the criticism leveled against the classical school and by the changes which had occurred in the economic life. There was a sea change in economic life because of the industrial revolution that had taken place. So he made fundamental changes in the traditional concept. So Marshall had a vivid sense of the paradox of poverty amidst plenty. He posed for himself two basic questions. Firstly, why should there be poverty, misery, and want while there had been such an increase in material wealth? Number one. And second, would it not be possible to diminish poverty and remove it completely? So Marshall considered economics as a means or an instrument to better the conditions of human life. Marshall put great stress on the ethical element and thus successfully humanized the dismal science as it had started to be called. So, in his definition, he says, political economy or economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. It examines that part of individual and social action which is most closely connected with the attainment and with the use of the material requisites of well-being. So, Marshall thought that economics must be a science, though it dealt with the ever-changing and subtle forces of human nature. So he almost wanted to make it like an exact science like physics. That's how he argued. But anyways, while earlier writers emphasized wealth, Marshall emphasized both mankind and wealth. Economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. That means how he earns his income and how he spends it on that lines. It is on this aspect a study of mankind that Marshall placed primary emphasis. Marshall agreed with the earlier writers that economics should be concerned with wealth, which constitutes the material requisites of well-being. By wealth is meant all things, mainly material, which provide the means for existence, comfort, and enjoyment. But wealth is not considered as an end in itself, but as a means to welfare, as a source of the betterment of the human lot. Now, Marshall consciously and specifically limited the scope of economics by stating that only those forces which were subject to measurement in terms of money enter into the study of economics. Marshall was indeed correct when he believed that the forces of human motive and the relations between pleasures and pain were not directly measurable, but they could be approximately measured by the sums of money required to induce individual action. Now, according to Marshall, economics studies only those activities which are most closely related to wealth, mostly closely connected with the attainment and with the use of the material requisites of well being. Marshall was aware of the fact that there might be human activities with political, social, and religious motives, but he rejected them because they were not amenable for quantitative measurement through the measuring rod of money. In this, he was influenced by the weight of classical opinion that economics should aspire to become an exact, precise, and universal science. Pigou also clearly defined economics as a study of economic welfare, which is that part of welfare which can be brought directly or indirectly with a measuring rod of money. This definition